Welcome everyone back to Spoiler Warning, featuring myself, Tom Colohue. With WrestleMania so close, most of our news today will be about the show of shows, WrestleMania 41, coming up in just under 2 weeks. We will of course have something of a focus on Raw tonight as well that you might want to check out, but most of our news is still very much focused on what big changes we can expect, and of course the most recent news about it. Our top story will be as regards the issues between Charlotte Flair and Tiffany Stratton, which are real and getting exceedingly personal. We're going to talk about what planning is taking place for a replacement match for Randy Orton. That includes more conversation about what's going on with KO and a little bit on PW Nexus, who originally reported it. We're going to be talking about the brand split, where it is now, the future of the brand split, and who the main detractors of the brand split are. Regular viewers know who this is going to be, and it's going to shock the rest of you. We're going to have a little bit as regards AEW and the controversial finish to their show last night, a little bit on Nia Jax confirming my reporting, and an update once again on the status of Brock Lesnar. Again, regular viewers, I'll be repeating myself because nothing's changed, but a lot of people have come across reports, or at least pretend reports, that suggest something has changed, which is incorrect. So I'm going to have to clarify Brock Lesnar's status. Conversations between John Cena and Joe Hendry are apparently ongoing. We'll talk more about what the WWE are planning there, but Cena and Hendry are apparently interested in a match. And I will finish by talking about CM Punk, Paul Heyman, and what the plan is for their transition at WrestleMania. So yes, I will be finishing on CM Punk. We start with our top story, that is Charlotte Flair and Tiffany Stratton. As I jump in on this, what I want you all to do in the chat right now is let me know who you think is going to win their WrestleMania match. Tiffany Stratton is defending the WWE Women's Championship against Charlotte Flair, the legend that is one of the most decorated wrestlers in the history of the sport. Who do we have winning and why? As I go into our first piece of news, thank you very much, Jess, for the heart, and thank you kindly everyone who's already hit like. Nearly 250 already on the TikTok side, and also on YouTube, already 22. We did hit 100 in our last show on Friday. Can we get there again? We have 56 people watching, 22 have already hit like. Hit that thumbs up for me. Let's get going. So, Charlotte Flair and Tiffany Stratton have a very contentious relationship, and a relatively new one. Tiffany Stratton, when she first arrived on the main roster, was largely being pushed by Becky Lynch. Now, Becky Lynch is no longer with the company, though she has signed a new contract. It is not yet kicked in because she hasn't yet debuted. Charlotte Flair wanted to work with Tiffany Stratton. Before returning at the Royal Rumble, she was already pushing for the WrestleMania match with Tiffany Stratton, largely because she is supportive of Tiffany Stratton, or was at this time. She was very supportive of challenging someone who was essentially compared to her and wanting to set that record straight. Charlotte Flair was also essentially asking to lose that match, doing good work for Tiffany Stratton, putting Tiffany Stratton over, and giving Tiffany Stratton that face push that was planned. Now, when Charlotte first returned, she was not receiving the reception that she wanted to. She was hoping to be received as a face, as she was as she left the company. However, the fans made it clear that that would not be the case, and Charlotte embraced that heel persona. That's been the case for most of this feud. Charlotte Flair consistently getting the upper hand on Tiffany Stratton. Last week, there was a promo segment, an interview, not a face-to-face, with Charlotte Flair and Tiffany Stratton in there, and this is where things started to get contentious. Charlotte did apologise for talking over and essentially dominating Tiffany Stratton in that exchange. Tiffany Stratton is said to have walked away and come up with some new ideas. However, a lot of what happened during SmackDown was not planned and was not scripted. Tiffany Stratton is said to have been offended at how intense Charlotte became. However, Tiffany was eager to give as good as she gave. There is said to have been an argument before the segment and issues beforehand, which riled up Tiffany Stratton further. And it also meant that during the segment, Charlotte is accused of going into business for herself. As a wrestler, that's something you shouldn't do, and something that unfortunately Charlotte Flair has history of, particularly in exchanges with Becky Lynch. We'll think back to the championship swap in which Charlotte Flair went into business for herself and was called out afterwards. Charlotte and Becky may have on screen fixed that relationship. Personally, they are simply not as close as they once were. Tiffany Stratton is said to have not been willing to take it lying down, and though the WWE are angry at Tiffany Stratton for what she said, very personal about Charlotte Flair, the WWE are also believing that this feud fell apart because Charlotte wasn't necessarily willing to share the spotlight. There are real, genuine issues, and Charlotte's off-the-cuff comment that Ludwig Kaiser was in her DMs, Tiffany refused to engage because it wasn't true, it's still not true, and it has pissed off quite a few people. One, for making that relationship public, and two, for defining Tiffany Stratton by it. The line about Ric Flair was agreed. The line about being a Nepo baby was agreed. It got too personal after that, when Charlotte is said to have been affected by the crowd. Charlotte Flair, Tiffany Stratton will meet at WrestleMania. Personally, I still have Tiffany Stratton retaining, but with everything going on as it is, Charlotte Flair is likely to make her opinions heard. I'm now going to say hi to everyone. We'll check out what your predictions are for that match at WrestleMania before we get to our next piece of news. 78 people watching. Let's get some more thumbs ups because we're only at the 32 so far. On the TikTok side, we're approaching 2,000 likes. Everton says Randy versus Aldis is what I would do for Mania. More on that shortly. Jess says, hey everyone, welcome Jess. Everton thinks Charlotte will win the match. Joe Pierce is here. Welcome Joe. Wanda says, showtime. Roy says, who do you think will be Randy Orton's opponent? That is our next piece of news. Leon says, hi Tom, hope you're doing well. Doing very well, thank you Leon. Aaron says, first time catching live since the schedule is back. Hope you had a nice break during the tour. I did, thank you. I do think the occasional break is really quite reassuring. By WrestleMania time, we'll be in a different position in this here room. As you know, there's a lot of renovation actively happening in my house, and a lot of work that still needs doing. We will be going into what I'm calling position 4 here in the office. We originally started there, then we moved to there, then we moved to there, and then we're moving to there. So lots of moving parts here. Welcome Aaron, good to see you. Says, welcome Tom, first time on TikTok, usually follow YouTube. Hope the 6 are back soon. I hope so too, Aaron, I really do. There are plans for them, but I don't think they kick in until after WrestleMania, unfortunately. Hello, Sean. Good to see you. So congrats to Cody Rhodes in 1 year as WWE Champion. Ishii is asking about PW Nexus. We will be commenting on them shortly. Sean says WWE is named Ronda versus Becky versus Charlotte as the 10th best match in in WWE history. That is WrestleMania history. What I will say is they somehow managed to beat Owens versus Bret Hart. Wouldn't have gone that way myself. Still a great match though. Ashley has Tiffany winning the match. Chris has Charlotte. Bailey says it should be Tiffany. Sean says TNA announced Joe Hendry is injured. It's a grade 3 rotator cuff strain. I will be getting onto this as well, you know. Thank you for that update. Pete, thank you kindly. A channel supporter for a 25th month. More than 2 years supporting. Thank you very kindly for that. Sid says Charlotte Flair will win because Charlotte's not been champion for a long time. One says I'm going to go with Charlotte simply because they want to give Charlotte her 17th title, I think, just to top her father. I do believe that Charlotte Flair will be the first to cross that threshold. Razar says Charlotte should win because the way the feud has gone, she'd look really bad if she lost. She's been dominant the entire time. What happened there? Guys, I do apologise if there was any issue there. You get it happened. Do apologise if there's any issue with the stream. Not sure what happened there. Calvin says, hey Tom. Welcome, Calvin. Mike says, good on Tiffany, to be honest. I agree with that personally. Billy says, Charlotte, I could see her pulling strings to go over what happened with Tiffany. I don't know if Triple H would go for it the same way that a Vince McMahon would. Forgot his name briefly. It's been a while. Everton says, Penta said his dream match is a mask versus mask match with Rey Fenix. Interesting. And Everton suggests we just saw an Uncle Howdy glitch. One of my most viewed videos features an Uncle Howdy glitch which I edited in, and it's by far the most watched part of any video I've ever done. I need to do it more, apparently. I really do. Calvin says, I think both Charlotte and Tiffany got way too personal with each other. WWE by and large agree. Juan says, even though Charlotte's going into business for herself, it will not derail the company like that Hangman promo with CM Punk. To be clear, the Hangman promo did not derail the company. It took more than a year for CM Punk to react to that. Cal says, hola, my buddy Tom. Hope you and your family are okay. We're doing good, thanks, Cal. Welcome to the show. The other Mike says, good for Tiff standing up for herself. I agree. Mr. Sim says, will there be any NXT call-ups after WrestleMania? Yes, I do expect quite a few. Bailey says, perhaps they need to take it off the main card as a punishment for both of them, and for us, apparently. Cal says, to be honest, I think Charlotte's been dreadful since returning. In my opinion, I feel like she's got zero connection with the fans. Unfortunately, it kind of feels like she feels like that as well. Christopher Leclerc believes it will be Charlotte Flair. I have, Cal, you are absolutely correct. It is a break, and I have indeed had a very busy day. Michael says, hi Tom, welcome Michael. And Calvin says, remember first time Randy RKO'd Nick Aldis? Aldis was left completely flat on his back and motionless. Ishii says, the only source I trust is you 100%. Thank you, Ishii. I will say there are some very good sources out there that are well worth your time. And I do believe when it comes to the sharing of any information, we should all be working together and you should be checking every source. That includes me. I'm proud of my record and I'm glad to have been able to have proven myself to you on a number of occasions. But we should always check. Always. True, Jess. Very true. Very true. We have 87 people watching, 42 liked, 8 more get us up to 50 and halfway to the 100. We hit 100 last time round. Let's see if we can keep going. Hello, Eric. Good to see you, mate. Doing well. One says, according to Dave Meltzer, fans left in drones. The moment the learning tree came out, Jericho has lost a lot of aura. I never trust Dave Meltzer when it comes to fans leaving. I remember a time he said fans left in droves when Alexa Bliss was there, and literally everyone disagreed. Cal says his Uncle Howdy hacked Tom. Is she saying, whoa, what happened there? Eric thinks the Wyatts are coming for me. Coach Nick says, I think Charlotte winning is a mistake. So many fans are new or returning to WWE and missed most, if not all, of Charlotte's career. Tiffany's been around pretty much since the start of the boom. I would say the boom has been rising for a while. I think right after the pandemic hit and fans returned, we saw a huge boom with WWE that was further boosted by Triple H taking the top spot. So there has been some overlap with Charlotte. I do agree, though, that when it comes to Tiffany, it's a fresh face. Cal says AEW is very odd last night. I will be touching on that. Sean says the White Six are taking over your stream. Aviation agrees. Mike says thoughts on WWE editing the segment after. This is a tricky one. I don't think necessarily they should be editing things that go out live. However, at the same time, in order to comply with what's going on YouTube, they will try and make it as PG as possible. And you are much more likely to see PG edited versions of what goes on YouTube than you are on Netflix. So it might just be them complying with what's going on the platform. That said, it's wrestling. They do have to be careful with what they show, so it's a difficult one to maneuver. Roy says Tony Storm cuts an X-rated promo at the post-AEW Dynasty media scrum. She does. She really does. And honestly, I kind of like it for the character in general. She just fully embraced who she is as a person, and I respect it so much. CFC says, I want Tiffy to win, but unfortunately Charlotte is going to win just for her record, which I don't care about because Charlotte reigns are boring. Calvin says, I've got a feeling Randy may end up putting Aldis's lights out. Daz says, do you have any idea who could be replacing KO? Also liked and shared. Thank you, Daz. I appreciate that. As regards KO, that's our next piece of news. Yes, Eric, I very much enjoyed the break, and I very much appreciate that I'm working a job that allows me to do that. I appreciate all of you for your patience and for still being here when I got back. It's honestly very reassuring. Doing good, thank you, Rob and Dave. Welcome. Cal says, I think if they brought Charlotte back and she lost at the Rumble, then maybe lose another 2 or 3 matches on SmackDown, have her admit she's not the same due to injury, then rebuilds herself. So I meant to say people would have reacted differently. I agree with that. I do think we're going to get that. The Rumble win, I still maintain, was probably the wrong call. The alternative, though, was Bianca Belair winning, which I do think that's another second win. So there is a danger of potentially poisoning Belair's push with that. John says, I read something the other day, Tom, that said Demon Finn was supposed to win at WrestleMania 39. Edge wanted to lose, but Vince denied it and pushed for an Edge win. This was by Fightful. I've not heard that. I have heard that Edge was pushing to win and that Vince McMahon agreed with him. And that quite often Edge would push to win and that Vince McMahon would agree with him. One says, do you have Mercedes money or Athena winning the Owen Hart Cup? Personally, I'd go with Athena. I think she's in a position where they're moving her across from Ring of Honor to be a big name and a big threat. And honestly, I can see her being the one to dethrone Mercedes. Roy says, are WWE interested in signing Jeff Cobb? Yes, they are. And Pete says, when she read out FTW car reg to move, it was class. John says, imagine if we got Randy versus Aleister Black at WrestleMania. That's an option. That is certainly an option, and I do think Randy Orton would choose the loss there. Welcome, KJ. Good to see you, mate. Welcome, Matt. Cal says, I think the fact Edge has only been paid 8 times... I imagine that's supposed to say pinned 8 times since 2020 says it all. Marcel says, hi, Tom and chat. Sorry I'm late. Now watch from the start. Have a good one. Let's go for the like record. Thank you, Marcel. Always appreciate you popping in. If we do get those 5 likes that we need to get to 50... we will likely go above 100 people watching. We did reach a great number on Friday of 140 people in the peak on YouTube, as well as people watching on TikTok, where we've already got 3,800 likes. We are now live on both. TikTok, by and large, is a backup. YouTube is still where my focus is, but we go live on both. Long form lives on YouTube, short form lives on TikTok. If you're enjoying what we do here, please stick around. Calvin says, night 2 is going to be on Easter, usually at my gathering at my aunt's house. Just turn it on there. Just turn it on there. Cal says, yeah, Charlotte's return's been booked horrendously. This is what Vince would have done. Top star, straight in, top match, have a doubt herself, have a rebuild. We'd actually have a connection more. I don't doubt that. I actually do agree. Everton suggests Randy Orton versus Rusev. Eric says, imagine if we don't get a replacement match for Randy. And you know what? This seems the perfect time, because right now... that's kind of the situation. There is no real plan at current for a replacement for Randy Orton versus Kevin Owens. The WWE are going in blind, and the reason for this is that they were not expecting Kevin Owens to be unavailable, and certainly weren't expecting him to be unavailable so suddenly. With this in mind, they've had no time to pivot and no time to build, and the attack on Nick Aldis is just a way of essentially trying to write Orton out if they have to, or getting Nick Aldis to find a replacement. Now, to my knowledge, he's not himself cleared to wrestle, so I don't believe Nick Aldis will take the spot. However, what I've been told is that WWE and Triple H have essentially said to Randy Orton, pick someone. Pick someone. There's a number of possibilities available. These do include people who've recently rejoined the company, like Aleister Black, so he could well be the name in question. It could also be, if WWE gets their way, someone like Solo Sikoa. So with this in mind, I hope they do allow Randy to pick someone that he wants to work with, and hopefully someone that he wants to lose to, because Randy Orton really does want to make sure that when it comes to the wins and the losses, the opportunities are there for people coming in from NXT and other places similar. Question I have for all of you, let's get that chat rate up. Who do you want to see Randy Orton face at WrestleMania? KO is not available. It cannot be Kevin Owens. Who do you want to see Randy Orton face at WrestleMania? Jess says, not in answer to this question, Orton versus someone in an Easter Bunny costume then, which would be horrible in every possible way, and that means it's likely something that the WWE would do. While you're answering that, a quick touch on the person and people who reported this. This was first reported by PW Nexus, and we've raised a number of times when they've got something wrong. With this in mind, I absolutely want to make sure to raise when they get something right. They got this right, and they were the first ones to report it. So, credit to them for it. What I will say is when it comes to their sources are very similar to what Zero News had and very similar to what WrestleVotes has. Their sources are very clearly and very obviously in the graphics department and the merch department. They have not hidden it at all, and it is eventually going to be a problem. However, while their record is certainly far from exemplary, you have to tip your hat because they got this one right. Don't forget what they got wrong while respecting what they got right. Everton suggests Randy Orton versus Joe Hendry, who, as we know, is now injured. Jess says they're definitely going to bring out some random YouTuber to get RKO'd, aren't they? I mean, I'd be down. That'd be great fun. Who doesn't want to see Logan Paul get hurt badly? Or any of them, really. What do we got? Eric says, imagine if we just don't get one. Rob and Dave says, who do you think John Moxley will drop the title to? Difficult one. I don't really watch enough AEW to speculate. Eric misses the trivia questions. Just too busy at the minute, to be honest, mate. There's so much going on with the renovations and everything. I do want to get back to them. I do hope to one day do so, but unfortunately right now is not the time. Scorpio says, Randy versus Bo Dallas would be great too. We know that won't happen anytime soon. Kevin says, I don't understand why Charlotte is jealous of Tiffany Stratton. I guarantee you, Charlotte, there is no Tiffany Stratton in WWE. KJ says, I'll find a plan for Randy. Come on now, it's Randy. Roy says, what did you think of FTR turning heel and turning on Cope taking out Cope at WWE Dynasty? Been there, done that. Nothing new. It's Judgment Day all over again. Edge just really likes being turned on. Or turning on? I don't know. Calvin says, I've got a feeling Randy will face Aleister Black. KJ says, just do a mystery opponent like Cody versus Seth. And Juan says, people complain that Vince loves Charlotte but forget Triple H loves her even more based on the monster push she got in NXT back in the day. And that's not wrong. That's really genuinely not wrong. Everton suggests Randy Orton versus Rey Fenix, who has of course just joined the WWE and certainly looked good in his first appearance. Cal says, I can see Randy getting suspended, to be honest. I just can't see them bringing Black back. I would love it though. It did seem to suggest, based on how things laid out, that it seemed like the women's tag team match, I should say, seemed like it might be the replacement for Randy Orton versus Kevin Owens, instead of an additional match on the card. Eric suggests Randy Orton versus Oba Femi. Sean says, do you think we get a triple threat at WrestleMania between Io, Rhea and Bianca? Yes. CFC suggests Carmelo Hayes versus Randy Orton. The other Mike also loves the idea of Melo versus Orton. Mike suggests Bo Dallas. Some kind of story there. There is, to be fair. Welcome, Proud Dad. Welcome to the show. Thank you kindly for dropping the heart and a generous donation, as always. Thank you very much for joining us. On the TikTok side, we're approaching 4,000 likes. We have hit the 50 and briefly hit the 100 on YouTube as well. Can we keep up that charge for the 100? I'll let you guys decide. Billy says Rusev. Chris says Aleister Black. Cal says Randy Orton calls someone out. Anyone from any promotion. Joe Hendry walks out at Mania. As we know and as has been mentioned, Joe Hendry is injured at the moment. KJ said Randy should face Aleister Black and they should set it up like Cody versus Seth from Mania 38. Bailey says Trick Williams. Alexa Bliss Gamer suggests they're returning Aleister Black as well. Juan also has Randy Orton versus Aleister Black, though it might not have the same shock factor as Seth versus the returning Cody though. To be fair, I did kind of spoil that one by stating that's exactly the match we were going to get well before it happened. Dad suggests Aleister Black or Rusev. Kevin suggests Sheamus, which is not a bad shout at all. Coach Nick says Orton versus Oba could be fun. Otherwise, I think Aleister Black would be cool. WrestleMania mentioned the Bo Dallas, but they're not a good source. They're not a source at all. WrestleMania do not report news. They just re-report news. Sean says, I believe PW Nexus said CM Punk was going to reveal the favour at the beginning of SmackDown. When he opened the show, he didn't reveal it until the end of the show. Very true, and always something worth considering. Cal says there'd actually be a storyline with Howdy. However, I don't think they'll bring Howdy back. I do hope he does return first week after SmackDown. I'm done being patient. Roy says, do you think Max Caster is the best wrestler alive? No, because AJ Styles still exists. Calvin says, given that there are a lot of superstars that are not fitting into WrestleMania plans, do you see things dying down after WrestleMania so that those superstars can get more focus and be featured more? Yes, and a large part of that will be part-time wrestlers. So, for example, Roman Reigns will be going away for a bit. More on that later. Sid says, will Randy Orton put himself in the title match Cody versus Cena? No, nor will he be permitted to. Bailey says, is there one more Hall of Fame announcement this week before it gets finalised, or is this it? I believe this is it. We'll see how it goes. You have, Calvin. It's strange, but I respect it. Christopher says, I expected Bailey and Lyra Valkyria will be the Women's Tag Team Championship Gauntlet match this Friday on SmackDown. Okay, but they're wrestling tonight. P suggests Bron Breakker for Randy, though it does seem locked in that Jacob Fatu gets that piece. Wrong way around. Yeah, he's got night. It's Penta, Balor, and Dominic Mysterio's going that way. Ray says, will Paul Heyman be with CM Punk? That's the favour. Kevin says, a lot of people talking about the women's segment on SmackDown, but not Rey Fénix's debut or CM Punk, Seth, and Roman Reigns segment. Those segments were fantastic. Proud Dad says, hello Tom, great to see you. Can't stay long, but we'll catch up on replay on YouTube. Thank you, Proud Dad, appreciate you. BWF says, hey, welcome BWF. Everton says Sami Zayn, who is currently out selling an injury and organising a new contract. So if he signs a contract, it's an option. Jess says, does Roman have the most limited dates of all time? He's working, 6 days a year? Yeah. I think he has less dates than Hulk Hogan, which is staggering. Michael says, aren't there some PW Nexus rumours of Evolution 2 being announced today? Yet there are rumours of that. It's not from PW Nexus. It is from a shared PW Nexus and Body Slam Discord user, Cody Rhodes. So it's not PW Nexus, but it's worth pointing out. One says, what are your thoughts on Swerve Strickland disrespectful comments to Booker T as of late? I think they're a work. John says, do you think Becky returns on the Raw after Mania? Could see Roxanne getting involved in the women's IC title match costing Bayley. Not sure. We'll see how it plays out. It's McKay says, maybe a stupid question, but do you see any women's mid-card titles being defended on the card? Not anymore. Not anymore. Thank you. I'm suggesting we hit the like. It's McKay says, I hope you're well. Feels like ages since I've last been on live and I've missed it. Welcome, McKay. Good to see you, mate. Always good to see you. Khalid, I don't know on the White Six. I've shared every piece of information that I have. Every piece of information that I have. Alexa Bliss Gamer says, who do you think wins the women's tag team gauntlet on Friday? I'm hoping Alexa Bliss is going to be involved there. Would make the most sense to me to do something like Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross. But there are other people it could be. I just don't know how it's going to go. There'll be a lot of new tag teams, I'm sure, because, well, they need them. Maybe it could be Alexa Bliss and Dakota Kai. I wouldn't hate it. Wouldn't hate it. Gotcha, Christopher. I did not realise that. Hadn't seen it. Rickan says, will Rey Fénix wrestle WrestleMania? Seems unlikely at this point. Cal says, will we see a new member of Judgment Day? If I'm being honest, I can see Karrion Kross being involved with them. He's been seen with Dom, and also you could have them feud with the Wyatts once back. No, there was never a plan for Judgment Day versus the Wyatt Six. And it's interesting seeing people cling to that idea. I do think it's a possibility later in the year, but it's not there now. And certainly when it comes to the Wyatt Six, they're nowhere near ready for that moment. Roy says, will Randy Orton choose Goldberg for his retirement match? No. Cal says, there's only 2 Raws and SmackDowns. They need to hurry up with announcing more matches. There ain't many left, I gotta say that. The card is nearly full. Erin says, Bayley and Lyra are wrestling tonight, but on Friday they were on the graphic advertising a tag team gauntlet match. Next Friday is a tag team. That's confusing in every way. So it's both. Entertainment says, has Kiana James been out this whole time because of the ACL injury? No, she was also out because they didn't know what to do with her. Calvin says, it would be a shame if the women's mid-card title never get defended on PLEs. It does seem like, unfortunately, that's the case. Proud Dad, I can see you reacting to someone, but I can't see any messages from them. I'm not sure what's happening there. Everton says, Randy's in the ring and Big E comes back. Highly unlikely, but I have a dream. Yeah, it's not happening. Unfortunately, very much not happening. Alyssa says, why is odd? John Cena favourite to win at one. Did a crown jewel. Did Gunter not pick his heel turn? What? Cal says Alexa and Nikki would be cool, but I feel like there's going to be a lot to hate between their two characters and jealousy fighting for Howdy's right-hand woman. Alexa Bliss has no interest in being Howdy's right-hand woman. She was Bray's right-hand woman. It's McCade says, do you have any news on Soraya Page? A lot of Twitter users are teasing some news for her, or may just be rumblings. No, I don't go on Twitter, and as such, I haven't seen that. Just haven't seen it. Roy says, I'd love to see Randy Orton versus Joe Hendry in the future. I don't know who that's referring to, Eric. Haven't seen that interview, Nita. I knew when I reported on Friday that the time off was about signing a new deal. So if it's actually happened, that's good news. Robin Day says, who faces Cody and John Cena after WrestleMania? Talked a little bit about that and what I'm considering personally. Thank you, Aaron. The Party Girls, Secret Hervis, Bailey Lara, B-Fab Michin, Shayna and Zoe, and Maxine and Natalia with the teams on the graphic. Maxine and Natalia, that's where we are now. Oh, Kyrie. You're trying to say Kyrie. Got it. Still think it's a shame. Cal says, in your opinion, Tom, how do you see Alexa and the group working together then? I thought she would be second in command. I said at length that I don't expect it to be a long-term connection. I expect it to be a very brief relationship. Rick says, hope WWE and AJ Styles come to a deal soon. Would hate to see him leave. Everton says, The Miz for Randy doesn't have a match and they have history. I think a lot of people would not be happy to see The Miz at Mania, I'll tell you that. Alyssa says, do see Cody Rhodes win one. Don't see them take off him hold for a year. Let's get to our next piece of news, shall we? Yes, Aaron, I've reported that last week's show, which you might want to check out, detailing exactly what happened there. That was on Friday. So, the brand split. After WrestleMania, as I've reported at length, there is going to be a collection of call-ups and a draft. So a big swap around of what's going on with Raw and SmackDown, or at the very least a formalization of where people have already found themselves. Now the reason for this is to essentially shake things up, create new potential feuds. Thank you, Spree Wells, for following, I appreciate that. And create intrigue in new feuds. However, there is one person in WWE who is openly hostile to the concept of the brand split. It will be something that is pushed by Netflix. It's something that's pushed by USA to try and make sure they get essentially their bang for the buck. But there is one person who is very much against the brand split and is simply unwilling to adhere to it when it comes to creative. That person is Triple H. Triple H is said to be unhappy with the business decision of those above him to ensure that there is a brand split and a full separation. He actually much prefers what is going on at the moment with Raw and SmackDown as we build towards WrestleMania of people appearing on one show a week, spreading the love and trying to use big names to sell tickets. That's what he prefers, that's what he wants to do, and he is eager to see the end of the brand split. It's something I report every now and then just to remind everyone of the situation. Triple H wants rid of the brand split and he's actively trying to make it happen. We have hit 5,000 likes on TikTok. Thank you very much for everyone there hitting that button. Everton says Seth is definitely going to SmackDown and Punk, and Randy going to Raw in my opinion. Thank you everyone for hitting like on TikTok, and thank you to so many people from YouTube who are currently on both sides. We're at 8 people on TikTok, which is a very good number. We're at 112 on YouTube, which is again a very good number. 56 likes so far, 4 more to 60. As we get to our next piece of news, there is pretty heinous backlash to what happened during last night's AEW show, particularly as regards the main event. A lot of people are unhappy at the return of the Young Bucks and the fact that Jon Moxley isn't really involved going forward. One of the reasons for this, there were plans involving Jay White that had to be abandoned, and there were plans involving other wrestlers in and around that were simply unable to get involved in this because of injury or because of absence. This naturally creates its own challenges, so they went with the Young Bucks taking on Swerve. The plan from here, Hangman Page and Swerve versus the Young Bucks, as the Young Bucks essentially become the centre the centre of the AEW world once again. After 6 months out and after years of limited date contract, the Elite will be taking over AEW once again. If this gets us to Jon Moxley versus Kazuchika Okada, I'm interested. If it doesn't, I'm kinda not. We have 4 pieces of news we will be going over before the end of the show still. Nia Jax has confirmed a report of mine. We have an update on the status of Brock Lesnar. For those who are here regularly, it is reiterating the information because I've seen a lot of reports about Brock Lesnar, all of which are inaccurate. There is talk about John Cena and Joe Hendry in the future, though not necessarily the near future, but in the future, and how the WWE are going to make that happen. And also, we will be finishing on CM Punk. We will be finishing on CM Punk. It's McCade. Thank you for following on the TikTok side as well. Oh, Aaron, fair enough, mate. I haven't had any problems with Netflix myself. I don't know what's going on with your own. I suppose I've just been lucky. Where was I? Roy says, will there be an Andre the Giant Battle Royal? Likely so, yes, but it will not be at WrestleMania. Sean says, a source about Kairi is from PW Nexus. They also said Asuka will be back in May. We will find out. It's McKay says, do you expect Nikki Bella or any other legends returning soon as for the Evolution PLE if it happens? Don't know if it will happen. I'm going to wait for an actual announcement and then we'll see how it goes from there. A lot of people are really sticking their neck out in ways that we will be able to know for sure. And hey, if they've got colleagues and if they've got sources in the graphics department, they might well know the date of these things. Cal says, really enjoyed Samoa Joe's interview with Chris Van Vliet. He's a good guy. And Cal sees Cody on Raw. Ishii says, do you think the Wyatt Six will be in the draft? Yes. KJ says, I wish Goddess Bliss would come back. They don't like the idea of going backwards there. Everton says, will Braun retain at Mania? Hard to say. I think this might be the right moment to put a championship on Dominic. Especially with a multi-man match. He could pin Finn Balor. That'd be great fun for me. Cal says, to be fair, I like the brand split in my opinion, but we just need it to matter. For example, Survivor Series matches and Invasion storylines again. It's McKay, so I really hope that doesn't happen. Smaller stars will get left out of the dust for big stars each week. Yeah, and that's kind of happening now. Thank you, Proud Dad, for that donation and that gift. A popular vote. I like it. I like it. Juan says, that's interesting, Tom. Didn't Vince hate the brand split too towards his final years? Towards the final years, yes. He was talked into the most recent iteration of the brand split. He did not want to do it. Cal says, my favourite episode of SmackDown was the night when NXT invaded. Rickan says, do you think Penta and Phoenix get drafted to the same brand or do they keep them separated? I think they'll be on the same brand sooner rather than later. Cal says, do you ever see a world where Adam Cole returns to WWE? I remember you saying Hunter had asked for it. Yes, Triple H very much wants to make that happen. I think the injury status and the continued injury record might put him off. One says, a lot of fans hate the Young Bucks primarily because of the CM Punk departure and the footage. That says, will the Hall of Fame be on Netflix? It will be available on Netflix, yes. Roy says, what match are you looking forward to the most at WrestleMania? The triple threat. Seth, Punk and Roman, because at the end of it, everything's going to be very different. Eric says, I feel like the end game for Moxley is Derby in his hometown. A lot of people are of that opinion. Cal says, my issue with there being no brand split is we get big stars on both shows and smaller talent miss out. True. Very true. Drive-by says, hey Tom, good to have you back. I'll be flying out to Vegas next Tuesday for my 3rd WrestleMania. Good to hear it, mate. Hope you have a great time. Sean says, Adam Cole is a champion in AEW. He won the TNT title. Yes, he did. Calvin says, Naomi's new look and attire is dope. The caution tape really gives it an edge. It was something that they actually wanted to try with Dean Ambrose way back when. It's McCade says, do you have any NXT callers before the draft? Definitely see Roxanne Perez. Tricking, I don't know why, but Fraxian. Roxanne Perez has already been called up officially by the WWE. Mike says, I hope the brand split does go away, just so you all can stop complaining anytime a star shows up on the opposite show. Nobody complains here, mate. Kaz says, will you be doing a watch-along for SmackDown before Mania and Raw after? No, I will not be doing that. I will just be hosting watch parties for WrestleMania. Just WrestleMania. Roy says, is Jack Perry injured? He's not been seen since he lost the TNT title. And not to my knowledge, he may just be taking some time off. He also may be injured. CFC says, if smaller talent miss out, I don't like the idea of the brand split. Just me. Even the smaller talent has talent and use that deserve a chance, so I'd also be against. She says, Tom, are they looking to do any releases before WrestleMania? I don't comment on that, and you know it. De Niro says, I think most probably Roman is going to win the Night 1 main event by the strategy that he used against Brock in the 2022 Royal Rumble with the Wise Man. Marcel says, I want to see Randy versus Nick Aldis. And Everton says, I'm guessing the Raw tag titles won't be on Mania. No, I suspect the SmackDown will, but I don't think the Raw will. Carl, Ricky Saints will not be in NXT for very long at all. Nia Jax has confirmed my report that she is not injured, that she is just taking some time off, and that she, like many people on the WWE roster, there was no plan for her use at WrestleMania, so she hasn't travelled to continue building hype for a match that she doesn't have. Nia Jax has now confirmed that she is not injured, she just didn't travel, and she is one of many who've been confirming my reporting recently. I also want to comment on reports on Brock Lesnar. There are now reports going around that Brock Lesnar has retired and reports that he's going to be on his way back soon. Neither of these are true. I was the first to report it, and I've reported it very consistently ever since. The WWE have a very simple plan for Brock Lesnar. Ignore it, and it'll go away. It's that simple. Whenever the WWE asks the question, they essentially hide the fact that they have stopped Brock Lesnar from appearing on WWE TV. They have not paused his contract. They have not stopped his contract. It's not on hold. He is running his contract down. That's it. It's that simple. There's nothing particularly fancy here. The WWE under Triple H is not a place for Brock Lesnar. Now, there may be, if things go certain ways legally, fan push for Brock Lesnar to return. I won't be one of them. I won't be. The people who do push for this, I seriously question. I wonder as to their motivation. But let me just be clear. At this point in time, there is no intention to use Brock Lesnar. His contract will run down without them spending any money on him, and everyone will get on with their lives, all the better for ignoring him completely. Brock Lesnar is not getting paid, Kevin. Brock Lesnar is on a pay-per-match contract. Brock Lesnar is not getting paid, his contract is running down, and soon it will be over. So, Cal says, I've already read that one. Tyler G says, hope everyone is doing alright. I'm doing well, Tyler. Tyler's asking if everyone's doing alright. Is everyone doing alright? Let me know in the chat. Sean says, could we really count this as Roman's 10th main event? No. The Night 1 main event is not a main event. Ross, welcome, mate, and thank you for popping back to the start. Calvin says, I kind of assumed Nia just wanted to take time off. Hope she returns after WrestleMania. She will be doing. She will be doing. Carl says, let his contract run out and then never talk about him again. Also says, Nia had one hell of a run, so glad she got the opportunity to turn things around for herself. I agree. She's been very heavily used and very heavily useful. Sean says, there are fans wanting Brock back because they claim he's innocent and there's no proof. We'll never know if there's proof. And I'm not going to potentially influence legal proceedings by pretending I know everything. We don't know. So let's continue to not know. The WWE will know more than we do, I'll tell you that. Dinero says, if Jay isn't going to win this time, maybe he'll win the Money in the Bank this year and going to cash in against Gunter. So if he doesn't win, he should still win, is what you're saying. People are doing good. I like that. Cal's on doing well. Tyler, busy week with uni work. KJ says, why do people make it seem like Brock did anything like Vince? We all read the same thing. His name was mentioned and people label him as a devil. I don't go that far personally. However, his name was mentioned. So a step away is probably for the best for everyone. Kevin says, do you think Nia Jax should be added to the SmackDown Championship match? No. We need to stop having like really bloated matches with everyone. Too many bodies. The WWE are planning for an eventuality in which John Cena takes on Joe Hendry during his final run with the WWE. However, the main stumbling point at this point is not Joe Hendry or John Cena. Neil said Joe Cena. It is the WWE. You see, the WWE are of the belief that if Joe Hendry is going to feature against John Cena, that will be considered something of a marquee match, because it will be one of the final matches of John Cena's career. With this in mind, they are only willing to do the match if it is under WWE contract. At the moment, with the length of time left on his TNA contract, they have not bought him out of that contract, and his contract will not be naturally ending before he can have the match with Cena. That simply isn't something that's an option right now. So while the WWE really want Joe Hendry and John Cena to face off, both men want it to happen, the WWE will wait for the right moment when it is cheap and it is under WWE contract. Oh, the Joe Cena thing went down well, didn't it? Ishii says, when do you see Alexa Bliss returning after WrestleMania? We'll find out. Calvin says, Money in the Bank is being held in a new arena in LA. Do you know what that arena is named? I don't. KJ says, no offence, none taken. But if WWE says Night One's main event is a main event, who are we to say it's not? I simply state that it's not on the basis that the main event of WrestleMania is the final match of WrestleMania. It's a main event of Night One, but a main event of Night One is not the main event of WrestleMania. The main event of WrestleMania is the final match of WrestleMania. Sean says, wouldn't John have to go to NXT to have the match with Joe Hendry? Not if he's under WWE contract. KJ says, a step away of Brock is what's best because the online backlash will be massive. And yet, there'll also be an online backlash if they don't step away. There has been, in fact. Kevin says, WWE working with TNA and we cannot see Joe versus Cena on a TNA show. Hell no. WWE is simply unwilling to do that. It's McCade Raw will be at 1 a.m. today. Everton says, I saw a video of Jay wearing a WrestleMania main event shirt in the WWE doc. How wrong he was. Yeah. Adrian says, do you like PLEs with match types as names, e.g. Hell in a Cell, Fatal 4-Way? Personally, I don't. I feel they can move those matches around as they have with Hell in a Cell. What I will say is we haven't had a lot of TLC one-on-one matches, and I used to really enjoy those. Cal says, I mean, and also if Lesnar is found to be guilty of what's alleged to be involved in, and they brought him, would be an absolute catastrophe for the WWE. Yes. Luke says that the lids hanging on thing still do your heading on bottles. Yes, they do. In fact, when I go to football, they take the lid off and they rip it and I'm not allowed a lid. Which somehow is even more frustrating. Like, it's for recycling. You're supposed to... It's stupid. Into it. Thank you, Bailey. Cal says, will WWE send any main roster guys to TNA? I just feel like AJ has to go back. AJ wants to go back, and that's one of the main reasons his contract hasn't been signed yet. Welcome, Max, mate. Good to see you. I hope you're well. Sean says, AJ and Dean Ambrose had a great singles TLC match, and that's always the one I think of. Blue says, aren't all ladder matches in WWE just TLC? Pretty much now, yeah. It's a fair comment. It's a very fair comment. Final piece of news. We are talking CM Punk, Paul Heyman, Roman Reigns. I've spoken at length about my expectations for this match and how most of the focus, I feel, is going to be going in on CM Punk and Paul Heyman. But most of the attention coming out, I should say, will be on Seth Rollins. So, Seth Rollins is coming out, a bigger name. This is something that I believe is likely to happen because I believe Seth Rollins is the third man. He will be joining The Rock and John Cena against Cody Rhodes. That's what I personally think is going to happen here. Now, the main reason we've got the favour with Paul Heyman, and I remember how so many of you thought this was going to be to get a championship match. It's not. It's never going to be. When it comes to the plan for the favour from Paul Heyman will be in CM Punk's corner at WrestleMania. This will take us exactly where you'd expect. CM Punk versus Roman Reigns. Right after WrestleMania, I expect we're going to see at least some point between WrestleMania and SummerSlam time off for both of them. And then a build to a proper feud. I'd imagine CM Punk has a few matches, Roman Reigns returns closer to SummerSlam, and we get Punk versus Reigns at SummerSlam. That's what I personally expect. The whole point of this favour is for a smooth transition from Punk versus Rollins, which we've seen going into this, to Punk versus Reigns, which will be the focus coming out of this. Punk and championships, from what I'm being told, is still not the plan, though Roman Reigns versus The Rock is still something WWE is eager to do. So the feud between Punk and Reigns is likely to end in a win for Reigns now. But actual championships, CM Punk is still not particularly close. Cal says Samoa Joe saying he'll retire soon is sad because it feels like we won't see him back in TNA. No KJ, no nothing further on Becky. Wrestler fan, I don't expect the women's mid-card titles to be defended at WrestleMania. Sean says, I guess Cody was right 2 years ago. Roman is now a chief without a tribe. It is supposed to be about isolation. Rick Anna's got Seth winning at WrestleMania. Jess says Heyman is going to run off with Rollins like Dom did with Liv, with the kiss and everything. You know, a bit Metro, but that ain't for me. Billy says custody of Paul Heyman match at Backlash. It's a Paul Heyman on a pole match. We all know it. Sean says WWE's been wanting to do Rock versus Roman for years and still haven't, which unfortunately is very true. Cal says I think Seth will be the third man. However, imagine the absolute curveball if it was Jay. Jamster, no news on the Wire 6 at this point. I've shared everything I can. I expect them after WrestleMania to pick up all over again. If it's your first time watching on YouTube, be sure to hit subscribe. If you're on TikTok and haven't followed on YouTube, follow over, subscribe. Also the other way around. If you're on YouTube and haven't popped over to TikTok, pop on over. Click follow. If we get to 1,000, we get more power to do more stuff in live. And I would appreciate that. Because it's a short fun video, I hope you enjoy it. A lot of people certainly are. In the meantime, I hope everyone enjoys Monday Night Raw, but I will of course be wrapping up here. As I've always said, I'm Tom Colohue. You've been fantastic, and I'll see you all very soon.